Hello, welcome back. Time now for business news, and for that I'm joined on set by Will Edwards. Hello, Will.
Hi, Louise.
You're taking us to the United States, where the Plan B wasn't such a good Plan B after all.
No, it's back to Plan A. In fact, back to the drawing board maybe after Plan B, which was an initiative by the Republicans, has rather stalled. They planned to pass a bill in the House of Congress, which they control. They thought they could get that through. It was thought to be, by Republican leaders, a reasonable compromise on the fiscal cliff crisis. Well, they already knew the upper house wouldn't pass it because that's controlled by the Democrats, but they figured at least they could say they'd done something if the bill got through. Well, things didn't quite go to plan, as Jocelyn Vardy explains.
It was called an exercise in futility by US President Barack Obama. Legislation Republicans in the House of Representatives called Plan B did not reach enough votes and fell at the first hurdle. Plan B was a proposal led by House Speaker John Boehner aimed at combating the so-called fiscal cliff, the term used to describe the end-of-year deadline when a bundle of tax breaks and cuts is due to expire, automatically raising tax for most US citizens. Boehner has spent the past few weeks locking horns with the president over the legislation, but also his own party, who refused to back his compromise plan. Democrats in the House called the legislation a waste of precious time.
And we are engaged here in the House on this floor today in what has become a ridiculous political stunt, which will actually take us much closer as a country to going over the fiscal cliff. We're wasting valuable time.
The House did pass one bill aimed at cutting domestic spending while protecting the US defense budget. But the major issue of contention centers around raising tax on the US's wealthy, a point on which Obama and Republicans refuse to budge. Both sides agree, however, that if no compromise is reached in 2 weeks, it would hurt citizens across the board.
Failure to address this debt crisis means not just 47% of Americans, but every American gets hurt if we don't fix this mess.
The fiscal cliff looms. If the country's left to tumble over it, analysts warn it could push the US economy back into recession.
OK, Will, so how are the markets reacting to this?
Well, not well, as you would perhaps expect. Let's take a look at how things are closing up in Asia, because the Nikkei has closed, that is, below the 10,000 mark that it managed to break through just the other day for the first time since April, nearly 1% down there. And you can see a similar story on the other major markets there. Let's take a look at how the US markets closed out yesterday. This was before the vote, so you can really see the difference there between those two sessions in the US and Asia. That lack of vote really making quite a difference there.
OK, what about the markets here in France, Will? They're unlikely to be cheered by the latest growth forecasts.
Yeah, things have been revised downwards again by the French Statistical Office. Overall, 2012 is expected to see just 0.1% growth. Government spending plans are based on ideas of 0.3% growth, so that's not going to go very well for them. Going to be quite a discrepancy. And for the first 2 quarters of 2013, there's going to be 0.1% growth as well. Just in the last few minutes, we've heard from Jean-Claude Juncker, the head of the Eurogroup of finance ministers. He said the Eurozone crisis is not over, but an important threshold has been crossed. So positive statements there from him. Of course, Greece recently upgraded a notch or two by Standard & Poor's for its credit rating.
OK, so perhaps light at the end of the tunnel there, Will. Well, of course, one hope to get the French economy back on track is perhaps to make workers more flexible, but that's not proving to be that easy.
No, I mean, this is the idea that economists have put forward, and the government indeed, are talking about making working more flexible and making it easier to lay off workers, hiring and firing, and even within jobs, not sticking specific to specific roles within jobs. Ultimately, this flexibility is meant to pay off. However, unions aren't taking it very well. Let's take a look at Finland, where the lessons have already been learned, and it could be giving some lessons for France.
In the middle of the Finnish countryside for the past 3.5 centuries, this factory has fabricated metal objects, scissors and garden tools that are exported all around the world. At first glance, the technique looks archaic. The metal is heated to 1200 degrees and pressed. But the business is competitive because of these robots, which are everywhere. When a machine spits out a blade, a worker attaches it to the arms.
It's more efficient when there's one operator operating the whole cell. The operator is feeding the machine with components that are necessary for the product.
Limiting the number of workers at the factory is crucial. In Finland, the cost of employing staff is among the highest in the world. Employees here earn on average €2,200 per month. In exchange, the boss has greater flexibility.
They can work on different product lines. That's one way of flexibility. The other flexibility form is that we have, let's say, very high seasonal demand on certain products.
The number of employees is altered depending on the product demand. Bosses here are about to remove 90 posts and will pick up 60 temporary workers in spring. Staff and unions are used to this type of management. It's easy to find work in a country where unemployment is at 7%.
We understand that it's important to constantly improve the production process.
Also boosting competitivity is innovation. In Finland, businesses invest more than any other European country in research and development.
OK, well, let's get some technology news. And BlackBerry continues to struggle.
Yeah, and in fact, it's gone into decline for the first time. It's actually losing subscribers now. It had 80 million users the previous quarter, now it's 79 million. Only a 1 million difference there. It doesn't sound like too much, but when you consider that other operators, other platforms are adding millions of users every quarter, well, this is certainly the wrong direction. Profits have also dropped to just $9 million for the quarter from 265 million the same quarter a year ago. They've got a new operating system and new phones coming out in January, so they're going to be hoping that they can see something of a turnaround.
OK, what about Facebook and these plans to perhaps charge people for sending messages?
Yeah, this sounds quite worrying for many who use Facebook, I'd imagine, but it is a very limited trial, and it's only if you're sending messages to people you're not already friends with on Facebook. So basically, Facebook are selling it as a way to cut down on spam, unwanted messages from people who don't know you. So if people have to pay to send messages to people they don't know, then obviously it's going to have to be about something a bit more important than just spamming people. However, it is going to perhaps be a little bit worrying for some users, but Facebook says it's a very limited trial and they have absolutely no plans to charge for messages to people you are already friends with.
OK, well, that's good news. Finally, travellers with the airline Cathay Pacific, they're still going to be greeting passengers with a smile, I believe.
Yes, they're going to have a little bit more Christmas cheer than was anticipated, because instead of going on strike and just walking out, cabin crews were planning on doing what's called a work-to rule, which means just following the exact letter of your contract and nothing more. So no nice smiles and chit-chat with the passengers, and maybe not going around and doing as many drinks refills as might have been expected. This was in protest at pay and conditions, but in fact this has been averted. They are still going to be smiling throughout the Christmas period.
Well, thank goodness for that, Will. Just finally, France has failed at its latest bid to get a foothold on English soil.
Yes, well, the port of Dover was due to be privatised. That was the plan of the UK government, and the leading bidder was reportedly the local authority in Calais. So the French, they're trying to buy a piece of England. Of course, the whitelist of Dover for any Englishman, very symbolic during the war, etc. So this plan has now been cancelled. The French are not going to be buying Dover. Those English viewers will be pleased to hear.
Thank you, Will. That was Will Edwards with our business news. Stay tuned. Hannah Wise coming up.